37 points, 10 assists, 8 three-pointers, in Chicago, on the road, against the team whose players spent the previous week posting white privilege from a locker room and arguing with analysts on social media about what she meant by it.
How you like me now? How you like me now? How you like me now? Did you like that? Did you like that? Did you like the Clark show, baby? Did you like the Clark show that she put on in Chicago? Any and everybody can get it. Was that white privilege? Well, wait a minute, DIJONAI Carrington. Was that white privilege? 37 points. Was that white privilege? 10 assists, 37 point, 10 assists, double-double. Was that a white privilege double-double? Was that 8 three-pointers? Right in your eyes.
Gotta highlight that, but she wants everyone to know it's not why she plays. She's trying to, deep from like Michigan. It's a mentality. That'll be the first personal on DIJONAI Carrington.
If you were writing a script for the most perfectly timed performance in recent WNBA history, you could not have drawn it up any cleaner than what Caitlin Clark just delivered. The basketball world was already buzzing before tip-off even happened. The DIJONAI Carrington controversy was still fresh, still being debated, still generating takes from every corner of the sports media landscape. And then Clark walked into that building in Chicago and put on a show that immediately made every single argument from the previous week feel like background noise.
Carrington, you put 823 on X like that was gonna be some big day for you. It was a day for you to get embarrassed by the GOAT Caitlin Clark again. Caitlin and Kelsey combined for 67 points.
This was not just a good game. This was the kind of performance that shifts narratives, changes conversations, and forces people who had been loudly saying everything except nice things about her to sit down and reckon with what they just watched. 37 points does not happen by accident. A double-double does not happen by accident. 8 made three-pointers against a defense that knew exactly what was coming does not happen by accident. So the real question is not whether Clark had a big night. The real question is what this performance actually means in the context of everything swirling around her, her team, this league, and the ongoing cultural conversation that has been building all season long. Because there is a lot more underneath this box score than just a great shooting night. And by the time we get to the end of this breakdown, you will understand exactly why this game is going to be talked about long after the final buzzer has been forgotten. Before we get into what it all means, let us actually talk about what happened on that court. Because the numbers are impressive enough on their own, but the context around them is what makes this performance genuinely extraordinary. 37 points, 10 assists, 8 three-pointers made. Those are the headline numbers, and they are the kind of numbers that would be considered a dominant performance in any professional basketball game, regardless of who was playing. But sitting alongside those Clark numbers is the fact that she and Kelsey Mitchell combined for 67 points between them as a unit. That means 2 players on the Indiana Fever accounted for 67 points in a single game, in a road game, in Chicago, in a building that was not exactly rooting for them to succeed. The setting matters here, and it cannot be glossed over. This was not a home game at Gainbridge Fieldhouse with a packed crowd of Fever faithful cheering every possession. This was Chicago, the home city of the sky, the city of the team that DIJONAI Carrington plays for, the team that Carrington had tagged directly in her white privilege post less than a week earlier. So when Clark walked into that arena, she was not just walking into a basketball game. She was walking into a pressure-filled environment where every single possession was being watched with an extra layer of intensity by fans who had extremely strong feelings about her, about the Fever, and about everything that had been said publicly in the days leading up to tip-off. And what did she do with all of that pressure? She scored 37. She dished 10 assists. She made 8 threes. She played the kind of basketball that leaves announcers searching for new adjectives and leaves opposing coaches standing on their sidelines with that particular look on their face. The look that says they prepared for this and it still did not matter. There is always a moment in a performance like this where you can feel the game shift, where it stops being a competitive back and forth and starts becoming something else entirely, where one team is playing basketball and the other team is trying to survive. That shift happened in Chicago, and once it happened, the crowd, the building, the entire energy of the game tilted in one direction and never really tilted back. Here is something that does not get said enough about Caitlin Clark. She does not get to play normal basketball games anymore. That option is no longer available to her. Every single game she plays comes preloaded with expectations, narratives, storylines, and a level of scrutiny that most professional athletes never experience in their entire careers, let alone in their second professional season. When Clark has a good game, the immediate question is whether this proves something. When she has a bad game, the immediate question is whether something is wrong. When she gets physical treatment on the court, the debate starts. When she responds to that physical treatment by scoring, a different debate starts. There is no game, no performance, no outcome that simply gets processed as basketball and moved on from. Everything gets amplified. Everything becomes part of a larger conversation. And that conversation has been running at full volume since before she played her first professional minute. So imagine stepping onto the court, knowing all of that, knowing that millions of people are not just watching the score, they are watching your face. They are watching your body language. They are watching how you respond to a hard foul. They are watching whether you look rattled or confident. They are watching whether you take the big shot or pass it off. They are waiting for the one moment that they can clip, screenshot, and use to support whatever argument they were already planning to make before the game even started. Now imagine doing all of that and scoring 37. That is what happened in Chicago. And getting to 37 against that kind of defensive attention is not something that happens because one quarter went well. Consistency is the word that matters here. You cannot coast to 37. You cannot get hot for 6 minutes and coast the rest of the way. You need to keep producing when the defense has fully identified you as the primary problem to solve. You need to convert when you are tired. You need to stay aggressive when the physical contact is real. And you need to keep your decision-making sharp when every single defender on the other side of the floor knows exactly what you want to do and is actively trying to stop you from doing it. That is the level at which Clark performed in Chicago. Not just the points, the consistency required to reach them. There is no honest version of this story that ignores the elephant in the room. DJ Carrington's name was attached to this game before tip-off for obvious reasons, and the white privilege controversy was absolutely still circulating in full force when Clark walked into that Chicago arena. Think about the timeline. Carrington posts white privilege tagging the Indiana Fever. The internet explodes. Days of back and forth with Emmanuel Acho follow. Clarifications come out, arguments pile up, and then, in the middle of all of that noise, the Fever and the Sky play a game. Clark goes for 37 in Carrington's home city against Carrington's team. And the internet, which had already been arguing about this for a week straight, now had a completely new layer to process on top of everything else. Now, the honest basketball answer to whether Clark was trying to send a personal message to Carrington is probably no. Clark has been very consistent about her mentality. She has said multiple times that she plays to win, not to make individual statements, not to settle personal scores, and not to respond to social media controversies by going out and dropping 37 as some kind of calculated revenge tour. That is not how professional basketball players approach a game, at least not the ones operating at this level. But here is the thing about perception. It does not require intention. Clark could have been entirely focused on executing the Fever's game plan, finding open teammates, pushing the pace in transition, and taking the shots the defense gave her. She could have been thinking about nothing except basketball from tip-off to final buzzer. And the result would still have looked exactly the same to everyone watching, because 37 points in Chicago against the Sky, directly after the Carrington white privilege situation, was always going to be interpreted as a statement, regardless of what Clark was or was not thinking while she was making it. The internet did not wait for nuance. The moment the final score was confirmed, the reaction was immediate, and it went exactly the direction you would have predicted. Every person who had been defending Clark during the Carrington controversy now had 37 new data points to work with. And every person who had been on the other side of that argument had to figure out how to respond to a box score that was not exactly making their case for them. Was that white privilege? That question, sarcastically referencing Carrington's tweet, started circulating almost immediately. 37 points, was that white privilege? 10 assists, was that white privilege? 8 three-pointers right in your eyes in your own city, was that white privilege? The jokes wrote themselves, and the sports world ran with them for hours. Let us actually get into the basketball here, because 37 points and 10 assists deserves a real breakdown rather than just being treated as a punchline to a social media argument. The three-point shooting is the obvious place to start. 8 made threes in a single game is not a normal number. That is the kind of volume and efficiency that changes how a defense has to approach every single possession. Once a shooter has hit that many threes, the defense cannot afford to give her even a half step of daylight anywhere behind the arc. Every closeout has to be urgent. Every screen has to be fought through. Every moment of miscommunication in the defensive rotation becomes an immediate three-point opportunity. And once a shooter is in that kind of rhythm, the closeouts themselves create new problems. Because if you are closing out hard and she is already in attack mode, she can blow past the closeout and get all the way to the rim before the help defense can rotate. That is the corner Clark puts defenses in when she is shooting like this. You cannot sag off her. You cannot go under screens. You cannot switch carelessly. Every defensive decision carries real consequences. And when a scorer has already proven she will make you pay from deep, those defensive decisions get harder and harder to execute cleanly as the game goes on. Then there is the playmaking. 10 assists alongside 37 points is the detail that separates a great scoring performance from a genuinely elite one. Most players who score 37 do it by being the focal point of every possession, demanding the ball, taking their shots, and letting the offense run through them. Clark scored 37 while also facilitating enough for her teammates to account for another 30 points between them. That means she was reading the defense, finding open players, making the right pass at the right moment, and keeping the entire offensive system moving, even while personally putting up the biggest number on the board. That combination is what makes her so difficult to scheme against. You cannot collapse on her to take away the shot because the pass is always there. You cannot go under screens to protect the paint because the three is always ready. You cannot double her off the ball because she will find the open man before the double even arrives. Every defensive adjustment creates a new problem somewhere else on the floor. And in Chicago, no adjustment the Sky made was enough to close the gap. Just when it seemed like the Clark conversation in Chicago had enough ingredients already, Inseer's name got pulled into the discussion. And this is where the story requires some careful unpacking, because social media headlines have a way of making separate events look directly connected when the reality is considerably more complicated. Inseer has been one of the more outspoken personalities in basketball commentary for years. His takes generate strong reactions. His comments on the WNBA and on Clark-related stories specifically have drawn attention before. And whenever a major moment involving Clark is already trending, outside commentary from high-profile personalities gets absorbed into the larger conversation almost immediately, regardless of whether it is directly related to what happened on the court. That is exactly what occurred here. A major Clark performance, a pre-existing controversy involving Carrington, an outspoken personality making comments that touched on the same general subject, and social media doing what social media always does, compressing all three separate threads into a single viral headline that suggested they were all part of the same story, when in reality, they were distinct events being pulled together by the gravitational force of the Clark news cycle. The important distinction here is between what actually happened and what the headline implied happened. Viral sports content thrives on the appearance of direct confrontation. Player A dunks on controversy. Former NBA player gets removed for saying something. It all sounds connected. It all feels like one continuous story. But pulling on each individual thread reveals that the connections are often thinner than the headline suggests. Context matters, and in a news cycle this fast-moving, context is the first thing that gets dropped. What this situation does illustrate clearly, though, is the sheer level of attention that now surrounds every Clark-related game. When a 37-point performance can pull in commentary from multiple unrelated sources and have all of it absorbed into the same viral conversation within hours of the final buzzer, that tells you something real about the cultural footprint this player has developed. It is not just sports fans paying attention anymore. It is everyone who follows sports media, social commentary, and cultural debate. All of them are watching the same games and generating their own takes in real time. That is a genuinely extraordinary level of attention for a second-year professional player in a league that was fighting for mainstream visibility not that long ago. Pull back from the individual performance and the individual controversy for a moment, because there is a bigger picture here that every team in this league is currently paying close attention to. Clark and Sophie Cunningham together represent the single biggest driver of the WNBA's current commercial and cultural boom. That is not an opinion. The numbers back it up. Arenas that were running at half capacity before this season are selling out. Television networks are rescheduling around fever games specifically because the ratings justify it. Sponsorship dollars are growing. The financial footprint of the entire league is expanding in ways that benefit every player on every roster, not just the ones playing for Indiana. Now factor in that this 37-point performance happened directly in the wake of one of the most publicly controversial moments the league has seen this season. The Carrington white privilege post was not just a sports story. It crossed over into mainstream culture, getting discussed on platforms and in publications that do not normally spend much time covering the WNBA. And then, before that conversation even fully cooled down, Clark went to Chicago and put up the kind of performance that kept the spotlight burning even brighter. What that means for the rest of the league is not simple. Every team's coaching staff is now going back to the film. Every defensive coordinator is looking at what the Sky tried, where it broke down, and what adjustments need to be made before the next time they see Clark on the schedule. The three-point volume, the playmaking, the way she reads defensive rotations, the way she attacks closeouts, all of it is now being studied with even more urgency than before. Dick Vitale said earlier this season that he believed players around the league would eventually realize how much Clark has done for all of them financially. That comment hit differently after this performance. Because here is a player who just delivered one of the signature performances of the WNBA season, on the road, in the middle of a controversy that had the entire sports world paying attention. And the result was another massive spike in conversation, another wave of new viewers discovering women's basketball for the first time, and another round of evidence that the attention surrounding Clark is not fading. It is growing. Here is the part of this story that does not fit neatly into a box score or a viral clip, but might actually be the most important part of the entire conversation. Because 37 points in that specific environment, on that specific night, against that specific backdrop, says something about Clark's mental makeup that goes well beyond shooting mechanics and offensive creativity. Think about everything surrounding her walking into that building. The Carrington controversy still generating daily coverage. The ongoing debate about physical treatment and officiating, the social media noise, the commentary, the takes, the arguments. The knowledge that every possession was going to be watched, analyzed, and discussed by millions of people who had already made up their minds about what they wanted to see. That is an enormous amount of external pressure to carry into a road game. And the way elite players handle that pressure is not by ignoring it. You cannot fully ignore it. The crowd is real. The energy is real. The history between the players and the fan bases is real. What the elite players do is develop the ability to put it down between possessions. Miss a shot, next possession. Get hit harder than the foul deserved, next possession. Hear something from the crowd that was not exactly polite, next possession. See a tweet from an opponent still circulating on your phone before tip-off, next possession. That next possession mentality is what separates the players who deliver in pressure situations from the ones who let the environment shrink their game. And in Chicago, Clark demonstrated that mentality from start to finish. The performance was not just efficient, it was sustained. It built over the course of the game, rather than peaking early and fading. That is the signature of someone who is not letting the moment get too big for them. The challenge that comes after a performance like this is equally revealing, because now the film exists. Coaches across the league have new footage to study. They have more data on where she was comfortable, which shots she preferred, how she moved off screens, and where the defensive breakdowns happened that led to open looks. The adjustments are coming. They always do after a game like this. And what Clark does when those adjustments arrive is the next chapter of this story. One great performance is never the end of the story in professional basketball. It is an opening statement. And in this case, it is an opening statement that the rest of the league is going to spend considerable time responding to. The Sky, the team that just gave up 37 points in their own building, will be among the first to go back to the drawing board, but they will not be alone. Every team that has a game against the Fever on the schedule is now updating their defensive preparation based on what Chicago just experienced. The three-point shooting volume, the double-double playmaking, the way the entire Fever offense runs through Clark's decision-making, all of it gets studied harder after a performance like this. The Carrington storyline does not disappear either. The white privilege controversy is still unresolved in the sense that no one has really offered an explanation that satisfied the people asking questions about it. And now layered on top of it is the fact that Clark just went to Chicago and had one of her best games of the season. Whether those two things are causally connected or simply coincidentally timed, the narrative has been written. And in the WNBA's current media landscape, narratives like this one tend to follow the players involved for the remainder of the season. For the Fever as a team, this performance raises the stakes on everything that follows. Expectations are already at a level most franchises in this league have never had to manage. A 37-point road win does not lower those expectations. It raises them. The next game becomes a new test. The next big performance becomes the new baseline. The next controversy, and there will be one, because there always is in this league right now, gets measured against this moment. The WNBA is sitting on something genuinely valuable right now. A level of public attention that the league has been trying to generate for decades. The question of whether it can convert that attention into lasting growth depends at least partly on how moments like this one get handled, celebrated, and built upon rather than buried under the next wave of controversy. Clark just gave the league another reason for people to care. What the league does with that reason is the part of the story that has not been written yet. 37 points in Chicago, 10 assists, 8 three-pointers, a double-double that landed directly in the middle of one of the most talked-about controversies the WNBA has seen all season. Whatever you think about the Carrington situation, whatever side of that debate you came down on, the box score from that night in Chicago exists independently of every argument that surrounded it. Clark went to the road, played in a building that was not rooting for her, carried the weight of a national conversation that had been running for days before tip-off, and put up the kind of numbers that make people stop whatever they are doing and pay attention. That is not something you can spin or minimize or redirect. The numbers are what they are, and the timing of them, coming directly after everything that had been said and posted and debated in the preceding week, gave them a weight that a 37-point game in a neutral context would never have carried. The bigger question this performance raises is not about one game or one controversy. It is about what the WNBA actually does with the moment it is currently living in. Clark is generating attention at a level this league has never experienced. The debates, the controversies, the social media firestorms, all of it is driving more eyes to women's basketball than any marketing campaign ever could. The league has a choice about what to do with that attention, whether it channels it into something that grows the sport, or whether the internal tensions that keep surfacing pull it back down. One thing is certain, the next game is already another test. And if Chicago was any indication, Clark is ready for it.